Hi, this is Craig with BRN Web Tools, and today I'm going to talk with you about rows and columns. Now, I have already touched on this in the tutorial I used on starting and running the page builder, the BRN web page builder, but we're going to review it with a little bit more thoroughness so you can understand the importance of how you edit your rows and your columns and how they affect your page. So I'm here on a page. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to load the BRN web page builder. Here we are, and everything's ready to edit. I have text content, I have pictures, I have everything that we need right here on this web page. But this is a great page for discussing the different options that you have. So right here is a text module, and that module will sit inside a column. Columns are the small boxes, rows are the big boxes. So this background is a row, and it has an image of a preacher inside his church preaching. And I'm going to come down here and click on the wrench. The wrench is down here on the bottom because of a fancy heading that a fancy nav bar that this website has. Normally it will be up at the top. On this one, all these down here, you're going to find that they're up at the top. These are all columns, but this one particularly affects the row right here. And this one, as you can see, it dropped down below, affects the row up top. And so you come in here and you click on the wrench. You have different options. Most of your websites are going to have the Power Pack bonus features that are in here, which includes separators. I don't have any of those active on this website, but if I did, I'll show you what they look like in just a second. So you're going to start with a style. All right, you're going to have the background. Is it going to be a fixed width or a full width? A full width is going to go, the background will go completely from side to side. If you go with a fixed width, it's only going to be about 1100 pixels, 1200 pixels or so right back there, and the rest of the background is white. That's how the old websites in the early 2000s all were. Back when monitors and screens were not more rectangular, they were more square, and so it made more sense to do that. But we're going to leave this on full width, and then the content, which is going to refer to all the columns that are right here holding the different modules, I'm going to leave that on fixed. If I take that to full width, it's going to stretch it all around, and I'm not sure I want to do that because this page is going to be stretching and moving all around, and it's going to rearrange all that. So we're going to leave that on the fixed. Now, you can decide on the background if you want it to be spaced a certain size or you just want it to automatically fill the page. You go with full height. And if you do that, you can tell the content to sit in the center, to go to the top, or to go to the bottom. The reason the content right here isn't moving very far is because there's a lot of spacing involved. So we're going to get rid of that default. That spacing is found in the Advanced tab. Let's go there real quick. I have 250 pixels up here on the top and 150 on the bottom. So I definitely wanted to give a little bit more space on top than on bottom. If I took all those down, if I deleted them, it would go to 20 by default. Or I can make it go even smaller and go to 0, but I'm going to put that back where that was at. Now, over here also on the Advanced tab, this is important, is the visibility. Now this refers to the device that the page is being viewed on. You can make this row, because we're editing a row, we can make this visible to large devices only, which would be computers. Large and medium devices, which would be computers and tablets, and the small devices are phones. So you can custom pick, I only want this row to show up on tablets. I only want it to show up on phones. I want it to show on everything but phones. I don't want it to show up on desktop computers, back and forth. You can decide all that with the visibility, with the responsive layout, that is. Visibility right here, this has to do with who can see it when it's live, when this is published, whether it's a logged in user, meaning one of you, those of you that have the credentials to edit a page, always, regardless of someone being someone being logged in to edit the website or not logged in, always, and you can always throw never. That's a great thing to do when you're editing something in this row but you don't want it to be visible yet. So you can work on it and save your work and it will not be visible. It's a great way to use that right there. The HTML element, these are where you type in your anchors, and so I have the dot system right here. When you click on it, it's going to scroll you down to different portions on the page, but up here on the very top, that you see that dot is red. It is red because I have told it to look for the HTML ID called top, and that's where that is at. So you can put those in on the rows. The rows are where I always begin any form of editing or building. I always start there and then work out to the front. So this has a lot to do with color and also the style. So we're back on the style up here. These colors refer to the texts. I have selected for links because these are links right here. I have selected those to be white. And the rest of these, when you see that little pin icon, that means no color has been selected, and it'll go with the default or whatever you tell the color in the module to go with. So I can change the colors right here. I could change the colors inside of the column right here. Let's go to the column settings. Again, it's asking me for the colors, or I can just go right here into the heading, and that's where I told this text that it had to be white. So you have 3 different places you can tell it, and so you need, if you're finding that you're trying to change the color of a text and it's not changing, make sure you check the row, the column, and the module, because one of those places is going to be telling the text what color it needs to be. So moving on from there, we have the background. This background particularly is a photo. We have the option to go with a color. You can go through and select whatever color you would like for the background. You can go through and select a video. This can be uploaded, but we highly recommend that you would upload your video to YouTube or Vimeo and use the link. You can just put the link in right there, or in there as well if it's not on YouTube or Vimeo. But YouTube and Vimeo are the 2 best sites for uploading your videos for playback purposes, and you can throw us a photo for falling back when the video is not playing. So very helpful right there. That's where you get your video. You can throw a slideshow where you go through and select a series of photos. You go boom, 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 boom. You go through and select the photos you want, add to gallery, and there you go. Rearrange them if you want to, and you have a gallery, and they are going to be playing in the background. You can set the time limit for how quickly they move. You can make them fade. Ken Burns is a variety of everything altogether, very useful. And then you also have your transition speed. You can randomize your photos. Very helpful, very attractive. And this comes into play with your home banners on your home pages of your websites. So you have that as well. And then you have the option to give it a link to a slideshow that's already been created. So that's your slideshow. You have parallax, which is very trendy at this time. It's where the page is going to move at a speed that the other page, that the rest of the content doesn't move. Sometimes you don't see it when you're editing, but now you will see. As you can see, the picture is moving at a different speed than the rest of the content right here. And let's get back to where I can edit that. A similar option you'll see on the photo, which is where we were right here. On that photo, you can tell this image to stay centered, center top, center to the bottom, right bottom. You have all those options for placing that image, but it's really only going to come into play as your window gets smaller. Do I want the focal point to be on the center of the picture or on the right, the left? You can direct that as well. And then you can tell this to scroll, which is where it's at right now. It will move with the page, or you can tell it to be fixed, and it will sit still while the content moves on top of it. So there you go. And then with the image as well, you can tell it to fill or just to fit top to bottom, or if it's a really wide image, it'll fit just left to right, or you can tell it none, and it'll be as huge as it is in the natural dimensions of the photo. But the best one to use is fill. So we get that. Your background color, if you have a picture or a slideshow or something, you don't really need one of these, but it doesn't hurt. You can go through and select a color to have behind it in case the image has a hard time loading. The background overlay, this is something that was already in play before I changed it. I can go through and select the photo here, and as you can see, that is in play on this page. And you can set the transparency option to something really heavy to something really light, and something very noticeable. It's great for giving it a certain twist. If you want it to be a little more green, a little more blue or red or something, this is very useful. So what I would do is I'm going to put it back where it was. It was somewhere around in here, and it was on 60%. So that's where you get your background overlay. Your border on rows, since this row is going completely from one side of the screen to the other, it actually does have a border, and it is white. If I changed it to red, you would be able to see it a little bit better. And this is on the bottom, and it is right down there. Now the visibility is at 100%, and it's having a hard time loading. If I save it, you'll be able to see that perhaps. But that visibility here, let me do it on this one. When I come down here to the border, it says none. You have the option for solid, dashed, doubled, dotted. Solid's the one that I normally go with, but I'm going to make this on the top. It's 1 pixel high. Let's make it 60 so it's very obvious, and we're going to make it green. And there you go. You have it right there. If I wanted it over on the left-hand side over here, I just have to type it, and there you go. It's great for throwing a color around the edge of it. That's the border. You can change it from solid to dashed to dotted, however you want to do that. So very useful. The separator, this is something that's quite trendy for the more modern sites. I don't have it on this page, but you can enable it. Enabling a separator, it can go on the top or on the bottom, and this also applies to the columns we're going to discuss in just a moment. The columns have a little more liberty to go on the right and the left as well, but on these rows, they only go on the top and the bottom. You have different ones right here. I like to use the tilt. The height level right now is set to 100 pixels, and as you can see, the background for this row is not really white, it's an off-white, and this is a solid white. I'm actually going to change it to something a little more obvious. There's a gray, and you can see where that is, and you can on the row up above it right here, watch this. I'm going to get rid of that progress up here. I'm going to work on this top row. This is one of the ways that you can implement it and show the trend of it. I'm going to get rid of that. Actually, that was a solid white, even though it wasn't visible. Try to always, when I'm editing these pages, and just to show you, I want to definitely save the work that was already done. Enabling the separator, I'm going to put it on the bottom, and we're going to make it a tilt, or we'll do a big triangle right. This is 100 pixels high, and there it is. It dips in, so it has really broken up that flat edge that we all expected. And if I tweak the color just right, like that, it looks like it's all, you can't even tell that these are different rows. It looks like it's supposed to be that way. You can get crazy and go really high with some of these, or you can make it a little more subtle, just a little dip somewhere, however you want to do it. So that is the separator right there. We're going to turn that off. Expandable, this is the accordion feature built in. Maybe you have a lot of content on a page just like these do, and you don't want it to just make the page a mile long. Maybe you want this to be an expandable row. I have it selected not to be, but maybe you do. Let's say yes, and that is going to make everything within this row collapsed. It's going to be hidden. You're going to have to click to button's going to appear saying here, expand this row. Click here to expand the row. You can tell it to begin collapsed or expanded either way, and that's going to show you how you can hide a large amount of content and make the page still seem small if you're dealing with a lot, but you want it to be on that page for certain. And you can change the color of that as well. Go through and edit that and change the colors of the text, the padding, all of that's customizable and available right there. So that's the expandable feature. Definitely something you would be interested in using if you have a lot of content you're trying to keep hidden until a viewer or a visitor for your website is interested in seeing it. The down arrow just directs the viewer down to the next row. I don't have it enabled, but if I did, it's going to appear right down in the center once I publish the page. That's right. So when you publish the page, it's going to put a down arrow right here, and when you click it, it's going to go on down to the next section. But I have the dot module acting, which does the exact same thing. You can make it usable on mobile or not. Have an animation where it just hovers and appears, or it's always there. So that's where the down arrow is. So you have a lot of options just within the rows before you even dive into any of the modules. So I'm not going to save any of my progress right there. I'm going to go back to where I was. And there you go. Now let's look at the column settings. So this is a text module inside of a column, and that is the edit column. We're going to click on that, column settings, and it's basically the exact same thing that you saw with the row, only less options for the background. You can do a color, a photo, and gradient, which is a mixture of two colors. You don't have the option for a slideshow or for a video or for the parallax. You don't have those options, sorry. But with them being so small, and you can have literally 6 of these right beside each other, you probably don't want 6 different video backgrounds going at the same time. So you can change your background color and add a border. The separator option, as I said, you can do all that on top, and you can scroll with me. There you go. You can make it on the top, bottom, left, or right. So if you want to affect the way that this column looks on the left, we're going to give it, there it is. There is a big triangle right there. You can change it to a cloud, which is going to be nice and poofy. Yeah, again, different options right there. And some of these things, as you click it, you see that I went to a tilt and that hasn't changed. You have to click save on some of these before you'll see a visible change. But those are visible on the left and on the right, and I would recommend you go back to the previous video where I talked about different page templates to get design ideas. They implement many of these all at the same time, so you get a good taste of what can be done. So we're going to turn that off, this separator. Now, the box shadow is something that these columns can do. I'm not going to do it on this one right here. Let me come down here to where there's an actual content on a solid background. I recommend this on solid backgrounds. You can click right here on the column settings. Sometimes it'll do that. If you click, it doesn't want to come up, but it will. You have the box shadow. Now, right now, it's not set to do anything, but I'm going to give it just a few simple numbers. Let's make that like so. And what that is going to do is it's going to put a shadow right there, as you can see it, around that column. So very cool for certain effects. You can even change it to where it, when you hover over it, it changes to something more noticeable, less noticeable. I put in different values, so you make it darker. You can make it a lot lighter. You can change the hover color, so when your mouse moves over it, as you can see right over here, when I move over it, it goes down but not completely away. So that's a cool feature. I really enjoy to use that. It's great for when you're trying to bring a lot of attention to a certain column that's holding a module or two. It's very helpful for that. So, but if you don't want it, just put all these values back at 0 and it'll go away. And then your advanced tab, exactly the same. You have padding, which covers spacing inside the box, and then you have margins, which gives you spacing outside of the box. So for the top, if I wanted to create some space between this box and the heading up there, I would type in 100, and there is 100 pixels of space between there. However, if I put 100 in the padding, it's going to be 100 inside of this box. You can still kind of see where I had that shadow. Even though I took it away, it hasn't realized it yet. But that's where you're going to go to change those. And these by default all sit at 0. You can still change your responsive layout, and you can change the width also, how these appear on smaller devices. So that's very helpful as well. Go through and select your, type in your HTML IDs. These are helpful for the anchors that I was talking about just a little bit ago, but you can do that. So that's how you're going to edit a row and a column. And then you got your margins that are, not your margins, your modules that are going to fit inside of each of all of these. And they're going to be edited in a different way. So stay tuned for more videos as we talk about how you can edit multiple modules inside of these rows and columns.